Oh, hell yes, dear listener. Riding solo once again here on Bots, Thoughts, and Drops, issue number 19, with you at my 6. This is Russ scouting solo the trail in advance of Hardly Strictly Politics. Here behind the silver microphone, once again, blessed to be here once again. I almost let you down this week, dear listener, but here I am, back in the saddle, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, don't you worry. This was a weird week in politics, dear listener. This is a top-of-the-stack kind of week, not a bots kind of week. That's all good. I got some topics scraped together for you to get you through until HSP number 54. This show is in the business of covering the bottom of the stack, or bots. The top-of-the-stack material we leave exclusively for Hardly Strictly Politics. We're in the business of the bottom of the stack, so let's giddy up, shall we? But before we do, let me tell you how to find us. First, find us on Facebook and Twitter at Zero Gravity Med. Send us email at feedback@zero-gravity-media.com. Subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and TuneIn, all 4 under Zero Gravity Media. And dear listener, please hit that subscribe button, please write us a review, and please hit that like button. Find us on YouTube, look for Zero Gravity Media and our Zero G logo. All right, dear listener, how the hell are you doing this week? What's been going on with you? Did you watch that shit show of a, quote, debate last night? I tried, man, but when you got Jorge Ramos up in the house as a moderator, you know it's already bullshit, every last bit of it. So I bailed after about 15 minutes due to nausea. We're going to talk a little bit more about this in a sec, but anyways, what an absolute shit show. Thank you, Libs. Thank you so much. Keep doing this. More of this, please. Have you been well, dear listener? Have you been taking care of yourself? Have you taken my advice and gone outside and watched the sunset? Have you looked at the stars? Have you taken my advice and given yourself a foot rub this week? I've been thinking a lot about water lately, dear listener. Do you filter your water? Do you buy bottled water? If you do filter your water, how do you do it? I've been eyeing a big Berkey water filter for my next big purchase, but I'm not committed. I've also been eyeing a Ruger 556 and a Ruger PC carbine, but that's just me. And this brings me to what's really on my mind, dear listener. This is really what I want to ask you. This is what I want you to think about, okay? Did you purchase a firearm recently? Dear listener, did you purchase some ammo? Firearm purchases went up 15% last month alone. That's month over month from July to August. They went up 15% because of all of this liberal squawking about gun control. So some of y'all definitely bought a gun. What did you get? Is it cool? Is it scary? Is it black? Oh my God. You know, dear listener, as I sat here putting this show together, getting all my ducks in a row and all that kind of stuff for the highlight of your week, which is this show right here in Hardly Strictly Politics. Oh, I know, dear listener, I know. Not going to let you down, so I'm getting my ducks in a row. And as I was getting my ducks in a row, I was listening to the God tier Rick Roberts on WBAP. Now, you probably don't know who he is, but the man is an absolute master of conservative thought, the spoken word, and a fantastic show host. Absolute God among plebs. And we're very lucky to have him here in Dallas, Texas, dear listener. I tell you what, he's on WBAP 820. If you don't listen to him, he's on 2 to 5 p.m. every single day. Check him out. God tier Rick Roberts. God tier. So there was this caller that called in as I was show prepping, right? And it turns out that he is a refugee of San Francisco, like myself. He was born and raised in San Francisco, and he fled to Texas to escape the liberal lunacy, right? And his point with Rick was, man, you know, I left San Francisco to escape this bullshit, to come here and be able to own a gun and raise my children and teach them how to shoot and raise them right. And I'm sitting here watching Texas turn purple. I'm watching this moron, Beto O'Rourke, Robert Francis O'Rourke, talk about taking people's guns in the Democratic debate last night. And I'm just wondering, what the hell have I done? Because Rick, if we lose Texas, we lose everything. And Rick agreed with him. And you know what? Caller into Rick Roberts, if you happen to listen to this show as well, I agree with you entirely. Now, I don't want to get too much into the weeds about the Democratic debate because, once again, dear listener, that's top of the stack kind of stuff. That's HSP material. We're going to have plenty to say about it tomorrow, but man, I am triggered to no end. There have been a lot of funny things happening on Twitter after all this, Beta saying, hell yes, not just yes, but hell yes, we're going to come take your AR-15. We're going to come take your AK-47. You know what, Beta? Come and take it. Robert, son of Rourke, come and take it. That's all I got to say, son. My point is this, dear listener, and I'm still asking you questions right now. Are you in any way swayed in your thought about gun control by all these shootings by Robert Francis, anything, the Democratic debate last night? Or are you more resolute about your thoughts about gun control? Are you more loyal to your Second Amendment now than you were before? Do you seriously worry about going out and getting shot, dear listener? Do you worry about your children going out and getting shot? Do you really think about that? Leave me some feedback in the comment section or send us some feedback at feedback@zero-gravity-media.com. Let me know your thoughts about this because this is seriously on my mind. I'm kind of wondering where the winds are blowing right now, dear listener. What's going on in truth about thought with gun control? All right, let's get into some stories with Uncle Russ since this is the only segment y'all care about. Y'all don't care about the hard-hitting political commentary. Y'all just want the stories. Y'all want to know what's up with the orange cat. Y'all want to hear about the dove hunt. Y'all want to hear about the beaver metropolis at our ranch. Y'all want to hear about Dad's and my misadventures in ranching. I get it. It's all good. Hell, I'm just going to start calling this segment Stories About the Orange Cat because that's all y'all care about. Oh, I'm just kidding you, dear listener. I'm just trying to have a little bit of fun. Just trying to have some fun. I know y'all love the politics. I know you do. But y'all are so damn smart. There's nothing I can say to change your opinion. There's no fact that I can report to you that you don't already know because y'all are on it. You're on the drop. There is nothing Rick Roberts can say. There's nothing Rush can say. There's nothing Sean Hannity or Tucker can say. Y'all already know it. There's nothing Bongino can say. Y'all already know what to think. Y'all already know the facts. And I'm so truly and constantly grateful that I ride this trail with y'all, dear listener. And so my job here is just to give you what you want, and y'all want the stories. So this weekend's story is about the orange cat. I've seen the orange cat. He's been around. I've hung out with him a couple times this week. He has run up to me a couple times, rubbed up against my legs, and of course I pet the orange cat. I think sometimes about taking the orange cat and making him my own, dear listener, but he's just not my cat. He would, first of all, hate the indoors. He's an outdoor cat, but he's everybody's cat. This son of a bitch. I saw him last night run up to a toddler that had just learned to walk, right? And the parents said to the toddler, "Oh, look, the orange cat is back. The orange cat is back." They were coming out of the God Tier Mexican restaurant. Of course, that's where everybody goes around here, is the God Tier Mexican. Well, in assorted bars around here. And it was packed, dear listener. But anyways, back on topic. The orange cat ran up to this toddler and started rubbing up against the toddler, right? And the toddler's mother is like, "Oh, look, honey, the orange cat is back," right? Everybody loves the orange cat, and the orange cat loves everybody. It would be wrong for me to claim the orange cat. The orange cat belongs to everyone, right? But I did take him a piece of bacon earlier this week, and I cooked it. I cooked it first so he didn't get worms, and I gave him a piece of bacon. He was appreciative. Maybe that's why he likes me so much now, But anyways, it occurred to me as I watched this orange cat stroke up against this toddler last night that the orange cat is truly a romantic, dear listener, a very romantic kitty. Although I did hear his ass in a fight last night. That's a true story as well. I heard him fighting, I don't know, probably that alpha male big tomcat that rolls around here, And, but I only heard the orange cat screaming. And you know what? I've heard a dozen of these conflicts with the orange cat. I'm sure he got out fine. I'm sure I'll see him. If not tonight, I'll see him tomorrow. All right, so it was my sister-in-law's birthday this past week, right? And damn, she's getting old. Let me tell you something, dear listener. My sister-in-law is getting old, right? Just kidding, sister. Just kidding. And so we took her out to lunch, and we were like, "Where do you want to go?" And she was like, "I want to go to Hutchins Barbecue in McKinney, Texas," right? So we all rolled out there, right? And dear listener, I have to tell you, that was a God tier, if a little bit chaotic experience. I leaned over and whispered in my brother's ear because we were sitting next to each other at the table. I was like, man, this is just goddamn chaos. And he was like, it is chaos. And, the menu's confusing. Everything is confusing. They do like the Disneyland wraparound lines to get up to the counter. It's a line all the way out the door, around the whole place, into the driveway, the drive-through area that they have there. So it took us 30 minutes just to get inside, right? Man, dear listener, I can't stop thinking about that barbecue. It was so God tier. Now, is it the best I've ever had? It's right up there. And the sides were really good. The coleslaw was kind of so-so, right? But dear listener, I ate so much that I did not eat again until dinner the next night. And when I had dinner the next night, I just fixed myself a salad because I was done, man. I was full for a whole day after I went there. Fantastic. Hutchins, y'all do it right, and I will be back. Dear listener, this is a fact. Almost the next day, I was like, shoot, I want nothing to eat but Hutchins, right? And I almost drove up to McKinney to go back once again. But I was still too full, so I couldn't do it. So, speaking to my sister-in-law, she texts my brother and I on Thursday. No, it was Wednesday of this past week. Dear listener, Bauhaus is great again. Bauhaus has gotten back together. The storied goth band that was together from 1979 to 1983 broke up amicably, got back together in 1998 through some shows, which my brother and sister-in-law went and saw in New York. As a matter of fact, I saw 3 shows on that tour. I saw them 5 times in San Francisco. It's my favorite band of all time, dear listener. But I mean, they're a little dark. they're a little bit evil. You know what I mean? And so, I'm really excited. And they got together for a show at the Hollywood Palladium that is happening in early November. Tickets go on sale here very soon. And I'm really wanting to get out there, but I just can't do it. The show is a Sunday night. I have a shoot on Monday. I can't do it. It's not possible. And I don't really, I can't take time off, dear listener. I'm too busy to take time off, So I'm hoping they make it to Dallas, Texas. My brother and sister-in-law did go see the lead singer, Peter Murphy, and David J., the bass player from Bauhaus, go play a bunch of Bauhaus music at the Granada Theater in February, I believe it was, and it was God tier, right? But dear listener, when this band broke up again for the second time in 2006, dang, it was really, really hostile. And to think for a moment that they would ever get together again was simply inconceivable, but they have. And so I'm hoping that they roll to Dallas, Texas, and I can check them out. Truly, I am. Yeah. But hell froze over, and all the bats flew out of hell. Dear listener, when Bauhaus gets back together, a deal with the devil has been made, and that's a fact. All right, dear listener, so I want to talk a little bit about barbershops, okay? And I'm going to compare and contrast 2 barbershop experiences with you, okay? So when I was living in San Francisco, okay, I lived very close to Chinatown. So I always went to this Chinese barbershop there in Chinatown, and it was run by these 3 ladies who I love so much. They were so sweet, and I don't know how to describe it. Every experience at this barbershop was a unique experience, right? But one thing that tied all of these experiences together is that they were always playing these kind of shitty Chinese performance music videos on their television set in there, right? And I would just sit there and gaze at them. It's better than Bollywood, dear listener, right? But they chopped me up really good. Seriously, you're in and out in 2 minutes, right? It's done, right? And when I make it back to San Francisco, I probably am going to go see my Chinese girls and, give them a big hug. They're going to say that they miss me. I never told them I was leaving before I left. And, I didn't even get one last haircut before I left because time got too short. It's just the way things went. And, go look at the shitty Chinese music on the TV, talk to them, I mean, they barely speak English, all 3 of them, right? But they're just so sweet. That's just what it is, right? And I would go to them reliably because it was just such a cultural experience. And I just loved them. That's it, right? And a haircut costs you $6. So with a tip, you get out of there for $10, right? And they were blown away by a $4 tip. So I just paid them $10 every single time. Proud to do it. Glad to do it. Here, take my money. Take my money, right? And so anyways, let's contrast experiences since I've moved back to Texas, okay? Now, there is something that I have really missed. Well, let me lay down the facts first. So I went and got my hair cut today, right? I've got a barbershop here, right? And the two barbers that work this barbershop are dear listeners on this trail, as a matter of fact, right? And great gentlemen, very, very intelligent. And I always want to get their opinions and thoughts about things because they inform my opinions, and that's the fact, right? But they've both grown these cosmic beards, dear listener, like these straight up ZZ Top styles of beards, man. And like they're huge. They're one is about, I'd say, 8 inches long. The other one is up to about, I don't know, probably 1.5 feet in length on their beards. Absolutely unbelievable. Everybody's crazy about a sharp dressed man. That's what I think every time I walk in there, right? Well, they are conservative. So I roll in there today, right? And I scope the scene out, scope the vibe. There are a few customers there. I walk in, I'm like, "What's up, gentlemen?" And one of the barbers says to me, "What the hell, man? What went on with the Aggies last weekend?" All right. So let me stop the barbershop story here for a minute, and let's talk about Aggie football here for just a second, dear listener. Fellow Aggies on this trail, there's not much to be white-pilled about what we saw with the Clemson game last weekend. We blew it. That was a huge opportunity for us, and we blew it, okay? Now, with every blue pill, there is a red pill. With every black pill, there is a white pill, and here are the white pills, okay? We did not quit until the very end. Aggies never quit, and I know that that's the fact, right? But we did not quit until the very end, and we scored that last touchdown in the last minute to make it 24-10. But here's the black pill of it. It was not a game that we were defeated. It was a game that we lost. It was absolutely a disaster on our part, Aggies, right? We did not show up to play that day. I suspect jitters. I suspect because we were playing the number one team in the nation. I suspect numerous things, right? The white pill about this is that Jimbo Fisher, our coach, understands it. He understands that we didn't play our best game. And more importantly, the team understands it. And this is nothing but a white pill, right? So, you lose to the number one team in the nation. You drop 5 spots in the polls. These sons of bitches that run the college football polls, I swear to God, man, it was exact. TU drops what? Like they dropped to 12th, something like that. We dropped to 19th. I knew it was going to happen. Right? But after this loss, the white pill is the team gets it. Jimbo Fisher gets it. And I suspect that we are going to really show up to play Alabama and Georgia in our forthcoming games. So that's the white pill, okay? So let's get out of Aggie football. I just talk about it because the barber asked me about it today. What the hell? He's right. He's right. What the hell? So anyways, I get in there, right? And one of the barbers is talking about this kind of, he's in this like a Renaissance group, right? That they do this kind of Renaissance style of crafts and arts. And well, they also do Renaissance combat, right? And he's got a guy on the chair, right? And I kind of just give this dude a glance, look at him. I'm like, yeah, he's Trump trained. I can definitely tell it, right? And so I sit down in the chair awaiting my turn. And, he asked me to come over for this LARP group that he has, to come over there on Sunday. And you know what, dear listener, barber, I think my barber, I'm thinking about doing it. I probably will be there on Sunday just because I'm curious, man. I'm truly curious. And I kind of like all this stuff, particularly this medieval combat thing that you got going on. I kind of dig it, man, But it was a shocking conversation to come into in a barbershop, right? And, you're sitting here talking about knights jousting and, I don't know, swinging swords at each other and all this kind of stuff. It was shocking, it was a little bit shocking, but it was cool, right? So the conversation lulls, and I'm like, gentlemen, did y'all watch that shit show last night? Boom. all of a sudden, oh my God, hell no, I didn't watch it. They're only going to say the same thing. The conversation all of a sudden turns alight, right? And like I tell you, the proprietors of this establishment, the two barbers that run this show, right, are conservative, dear listener. And they also happen to be fellow dear listeners right there with you. They are, right? Not that I'm conservative or anything, certainly not Republican, but anyways, I don't want to get lost in the weeds. So we start up this fascinating conversation about the Democratic candidates, about Donald Trump, and we reach unanimous consensus within moments about what Luke and I have already said in these hallowed halls, if I may say, which I do. It's over. This election is for Donald Trump to lose or win. There is nobody in this field of candidates right now, this shit show of a Democratic primary, that can take it to Donald Trump. There is nobody, right? And I'm just going to leave it right there because I think Luke's going to have a lot to say about this tomorrow when we drop HSP. So we're just going to leave it there for now. But it got me to thinking, dear listener, about barbershops, right? Now, in my Chinese barbershop with the 3 Chinese gals, something like this never would have happened. Now, I love that barbershop, and I loved my experiences there, and I love those girls so much. I absolutely adore them, right? But there is something that I have noticed since I have returned to Texas, and that is this. Male camaraderie in a barbershop. It's fantastic. I feed off of it. And I really looked forward to going to my Chinese girls to get my hair cut every time. I just wanted to see them. Well, now I want to see my boys and our fellow riders, right? I want to see them every time, but it's for a different thing. It's because you can go in there and be a man. You can talk about man things. You can talk about medieval combat. You can talk about politics, right? I've never heard anybody talk about ladies in there, but you can talk about that too. You can talk about crime going on in town. You can talk about all of this kind of stuff. You can be a man in a barbershop. And this is one of the last vestiges I see in American society. Barely. Definitely not in San Francisco. It didn't exist there, right? But I see it here in Texas again. This place, the barbershop, where you can go and be a man with other men. I love it. Now, listen, ladies, I'm not meaning to be exclusive. Y'all got y'all salons, right? Y'all got all that stuff where you can go and be a woman. 'Cause I'm a woman, Anjali. Y'all can go be a woman. And that's fantastic. I love that too, right? But what I love even more is that I can go to a barbershop and be a man with other men and talk about men things and be men. You can't do that at bars. You can't do that at work. You can't do that even in the privacy of your own home, in your own car, right? You really can't do that unless you set up some kind of man fellowship group anywhere, right? And it is still great in Texas, dear listener, that you can go to the barbershop and commune and have fellowship with men. I love it. And that just about does it for Stories with Uncle Russ. We're running really late into the show already. That's okay. I know this is all y'all want to hear anyway, so I'm glad I spent some time on it this week. I'm just kidding you. I'm just giving you shit, dear listener. I'm just trying to have some fun. I know y'all like the hard-hitting political commentary. So did y'all hear about this shit with Felicity Huffman today? Yeah. You know the gal who bribed colleges in order to get her daughters into school? Well, I've got a Zero Hedge piece here. This is hot off the press, broke just today. The title is Actress Felicity Huffman, First Parent Sentenced in College Admission Scandal, Gets 14 Days in Prison. Take it from the lead, it goes thus. Following reports that she might avoid jail time, actress Felicity Huffman has been sentenced to 14 whopping days in prison at a federal court in Boston on Friday. Prosecutors had recommended that Huffman serve a month in prison. They argued that, quote, imprisonment is needed because this was a considered, deliberate, and purposeful act, which is correct. But before handing down the sentence, U.S. District Judge Indira Taiwani. All right, let me tell you something about Indira Taiwani. Is it Taiwani? Taiwani. Sorry about that. She is an Obama appointee. So contrary to what Justice Roberts said about there are no Obama judges, there are no Bush judges, there are only judges. Oh my God. Yeah, we see evidence right here of what an Obama judge can do and wreak havoc on our judicial system. I take the paragraph again from the lead. Sorry about that, dear listener. But before handing down the sentence, U.S. District Judge Indira Talwani said she wasn't swayed by the prosecutor's claims that Huffman and her fellow defendants' actions undermined the whole college admission system. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? You're not convinced that buying influence to get your child into university is not swaying the college admission system? What an absolute dumbass. What an absolute dumbass. College admissions are already swayed by wealth in the first place, dear listener. We know this to be an objective fact, right? The correction, the antiseptic for this, according to the libs, is more affirmative action, right? Let's bring in more black people. Let's bring in more illegals. Let's bring in more of them, right? They're poor, right? Let's leave the white people out of college education entirely. And what we have seen in college education now is that there are more women than men in college by 54% to 46%, right? Because men are kind of waking up and realizing, man, this is a bunch of bullshit. I don't want to go get indoctrinated, right? We have a degree mill, a training mill, a college to work system that favors the wealthy and people of color and women. That's what we have. That's what college has become. It is a really disgraceful and scary situation, dear listener. And for this Judge Talwani to say that, oh my God, it's definitely not swaying the college admission system. Oh my God. Well, yes, it is. Yes, it is. You are buying influence because Felicity Huffman is very wealthy. She was the star of Desperate Housewives. She also happens to be married to, oh God, what's his name? William H. Macy. William H. Macy, right? So they're loaded, right? They can spend infinite amount of money to get their kids into college, and they did. And all of these videos of their girls in college coming out about like, oh my God, so I'm in college now. I just want to party. I don't want to go to college. Do you see what's happened here? Dear listener, a worthwhile student was refused admission because Felicity Huffman bought influence. Worthwhile students are left out of college, right and left, because they're going to take a less qualified African-American person or a less qualified transgender person or a less qualified illegal into the system over somebody who deserves it. This is absurd to me on its face because of this, right? Why is it that you don't want the best of the best of the best that you can get at your university? Color doesn't matter. Gender doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Nothing matters. Why do you not want the absolute most talented into your system? That is the only thing that makes logical sense. I hearken you back to a story I think that we covered in HSP. It would be in the 20s. There's a lawsuit going on right now where Asian students that were very intelligent were discriminated against for admission to Harvard so that they could bring in more lesser qualified African-American students. Does this make any damn sense? That's Harvard we're talking about. What if Harvard doesn't want the best of the best of the best? If Yale doesn't want the best of the best of the best, they set the role model for the entire educational system. It's absolute horseshit. And for this judge to come out and say, oh, prosecution didn't make their case that this affects the college admission system. Oh my God. As if the prosecution should even have to make a case about that, because it is obvious that all of this affects the college admission system. That's why men are no longer going to college in the numbers that they used to. Particularly white men are no longer going to college. That's why they're going to the trades now so that they can go compete with illegals for jobs. It's an absolutely disgraceful situation. I'm getting a little bit triggered. I'm going to go ahead and roll on. Got some news about Jeffrey Epstein this week. Got a Gateway Pundit piece here. It dropped earlier in this week, and the title is, well, what do you know? Scumbag LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman is linked to Jeffrey Epstein. Take it from the lead. It goes thus. In the 2017 special election in Alabama, Democrats ran a smear campaign against Judge Roy Moore, and Facebook allowed it. The Democrats took the, quote, Russian model and ramped it up times a million. LinkedIn co-founder Reid Hoffman donated $100,000 to the cause. Democrats later admitted to the disinformation campaign, and all of this is true, dear listener. It's factually correct. They tried to smear him as a pedophile, And there's some creepy stuff about Roy Moore. I mean, I'm not trying to defend him, but they ran a pedophile campaign against him, right? Do you see the irony here developing? Let me read on with paragraph 2. In 2018, Reid Hoffman took part in another deceptive campaign and was a top donor of a Never Trumper women's PAC. And in 2018, the Daily Caller News Foundation revealed Democrat operatives linked to Reid Hoffman used the same tactics in the 2018 midterms to suppress the GOP vote. Reid Hoffman is a committed leftist who likes to be involved in shady and possibly illegal Facebook campaigns to mislead voters. Now this. New information leaked out this week that sex offender Jeffrey Epstein was a guest at dinner hosted by Reid Hoffman. Likely within days, the U.S. Okay, all right, we're not going to read on anymore. It was reported in Vanity Fair, but that means that Reid Hoffman invited Jeffrey Epstein to his dinner party. I wonder why. I wonder what was going on there, right? How does this man, Reid Hoffman, have the temerity to accuse Roy Moore of being a pedophile, a kitty diddler, because he was just trying to find a young bride? Really, that's it. That's all he was trying to do. He was just interviewing young girls. He never messed around with them. But this man, Reid Hoffman, donated $100,000 to the cause to overturn Roy Moore. And then name him a pedophile. Name Roy Moore a pedophile. Then he invites the ultimate pedophile over to his house for dinner. Good God Almighty. Good God Almighty, man. I mean, if it weren't for double standards, as we always say in these hallowed halls, dear listener, the left would have no standards at all. Absolutely none. I just want y'all to think about that hypocrisy there for a minute. Just think about that. And I'm going to take a sip of gin while you think about it. Oh, it's watered down. My eye smelt. Dang it. Oh, well. All right, we're going to shift gears a little bit. We're going to talk about Spygate. Okay. Now, I'm not going to paint the overall conclusive picture of Spygate. Okay, y'all can watch Sean Hannity and listen to Bongino and get the down in the nitty gritty details about what's going on with Spygate. Okay, I'm just going to leave y'all with some things to think about. Okay, now, and speaking of that, okay, all right. Now, I laid out a case against the Federal Reserve for y'all last week. Okay, I got a little bit of feedback about that it was a little bit too arcane, that I read a little bit too much. I didn't get a little bit of feedback. I got a lot of feedback about it. And it was a little bit ass-chapping, to be perfectly honest, dear listener. I mean, thank you for the feedback. I'll try to be better next time, really. But I'm not trying to tell y'all what to think. I'm just trying to lay out some basic details on what you should know so that you can figure out what you think for yourself, okay? I'm not trying to preach to you. I'm not trying to read to you. I'm just trying to give you some things for you to consider. That's the whole purpose of Bots, Thoughts, and Drops. And if I offended you by being so literal and, didactic and what's the word I'm looking for? It's not arcane. Anyways, the word escapes me. It doesn't matter. We're going to roll on. I apologize for that last week, but you know what? I invite you to listen to it again, right? If you were challenged by it, if it was too much fact for you, right? Go back and listen to it again and form an opinion and come back at me about what you think about what it was I said about the Federal Reserve last week. All right? Deal? Is that good? Okay. And I'll try not to be so preachy going forward. I promise. Sorry I failed your taste that week. I really am. All right. We're going to start out with an overarching narrative. There are lots of things that happened with Spygate this week, but we're going to talk about this one right here. Okay. First, we're going to start out here with Libya. Okay. It turns out that we found out on about Tuesday of this past week that Tom Fitton at Judicial Watch has been funding an investigation into what exactly happened in Libya, how Libya was destroyed, how it was overturned, the whole Benghazi scandal, all of it, okay? Well, he found in a FOIA suit these really curious documents, and these documents regard one Sidney Blumenthal. Now, do y'all know who Sidney Blumenthal is? Okay. Excuse me, dear listener. I believe that he was chief of staff for Bill Clinton. I think that's right. He was very involved in the Clinton administration, right? And I think he was chief of staff. Well, it doesn't matter. He's always been Team Clinton. Like, they are BFFs going way back into the 80s, dear listener, if not the 70s, okay? Sidney Blumenthal is a lobbyist. He is a sometimes journalist, always scumbag, right? And it turns out that Sidney Blumenthal may have been running a money recovery operation on behalf of Libya, and maybe was appealing to Hillary Clinton to kind of overthrow Gaddafi in Libya to destabilize that regime so that they could repatriate that money. Well, you know what? Okay, we don't know that. But if true, as the liberals always say, if true, well, damn, did Hillary Clinton ever oblige Sidney Blumenthal's request to go destabilize Libya? Y'all remember that comment that Hillary said? We came, we saw, he died. I think she said it in a 60 Minutes interview. Don't believe me? Go look it up on YouTube. You can find it everywhere. We came, we saw, he died. Laughing about Gaddafi lying. Now listen, dear listener, I'm no fan of Muammar Gaddafi. None whatsoever. But do you know how he died? Exactly. Do you know how he died? He was run out to the streets and a knife was shoved up his ass and left there until he bled to death. That's a fact. That is the most barbaric thing I've ever seen. Once again, don't believe me. There may still be videos out there about that. It may have been scrubbed off of YouTube. You might be able to find it on Live Link. It's awful. It's absolutely awful what they did to this man. That is what Hillary Clinton is cackling about. Well, Muammar Gaddafi, he had stashed about $66 billion all around the world in various accounts in Switzerland, Singapore, all over the place, right? Brazil, right? $66 billion. Well, it turns out that what was definitely, even though he denies it, to be fair, Sidney Blumenthal does deny it, but Tom Fitton did produce the documents that did kind of prove that he did. Sidney Blumenthal was trying to recover that $66 billion. And in order to do so, it looks like he may have given Hillary Clinton intelligence about what the political scene was in Libya so that she would go destabilize the region. Y'all remember that whole thing that happened in Benghazi? That was on Hillary Clinton and Barack Hussein Obama as well, okay? Now, why? Why is he trying to repatriate this money, okay? Well, he was working with his buddy Weiner. Man, what is Weiner's first name? Shoot, it slips me at the moment, dear listener. It's in this article I've got pulled up. We'll get to it in just a minute. It doesn't matter, right? Well, they probably stood to gain about hundreds of millions of dollars off of this $66 billion if they repatriated Gaddafi's stashed money back into Libya, right? So what they wanted to happen was Gaddafi to be overthrown, murdered, and then a new leader put into place, and then they would come in as the white knight heroes, repatriating Gaddafi's illicit money, which it was illicit, and it was absolutely plundered money, bringing it back into Libya, and they would take a cut of it. And I would kind of bet here, dear listener, this is only speculation. I can't prove it, but I would kind of bet that out of those hundreds of millions of dollars, a major kickback was probably promised to the Clinton Foundation. Just saying. I mean, that's how this stuff goes, right? That's how this stuff goes. Well, in the process of this discovery, okay, Tom Fitton also learned some really interesting other things, some things which directly link Barack Hussein Obama, the chosen one, which he's not the chosen one, dear listener. There's only one chosen one, and that is Donald J. Trump. I'm the chosen one. Well, it turns out that Obama may have been involved in all this, right? And in the discovery of these documents about Libya, some other really interesting things came out about Spygate. And it goes like this right here. That intelligence that Tom Fitton funded, it was a private investigation into what went on in Libya. When he discovered these things, right, and discovered these documents, well, he turned it into the DOJ and the FBI. Well, guess what the FBI did? Right? This is when they were investigating Hillary Clinton's emails and all that kind of stuff. They spiked the ball on that information. They spiked it, right? And James Comey comes out and says, on July 3rd of 2017, no reasonable prosecutor would ever try a case against the impeccable Hillary Clinton. So I'm recommending no prosecution to Loretta Lynch, right? Y'all remember all this, right? They had that information given to them by Tom Fitton at that point in time, okay? They knew exactly how Sidney Blumenthal, who was blocked by Barack Hussein Obama from being involved in the State Department, Hillary wanted to bring him on as a right-hand man, and Barack Obama even was like, hell no, man. Sidney Blumenthal's not coming into this administration. He'd absolutely wreck us. And he's right. He would. Blumenthal would, right? But what we got here is a situation where the FBI knew what Tom Fitton knew, right? They were given those documents that Tom Fitton recovered, right? And sources from his private investigation about what it was that Sidney Blumenthal and Weiner were up to. They were told, and they did nothing. And do you know what they did instead, dear listener? They started Operation Crossfire Hurricane to try to get the president out of office. That's what happened, okay? Don't believe me. I've got a real clear investigations piece. I'm just going to take it from the lead. It goes thus. Records recently posted online by the FBI indicate that it did little to investigate allegations from private sources connected to Republicans about a scheme in which associates of Secretary of State Hillary Clinton tried to exploit their connection to her to profit from the turmoil in Libya in 2011. The FBI received the documents in June of 2016. Around the same time, it launched an exhaustive 3-year investigation of the Trump campaign's ties to Russia based in part on information from private sources connected to Democrats that in the main would prove to be false, the Steele dossier. The Bureau's different responses to these documents also came during the same period when FBI Director James B. Comey controversially cleared Clinton in his first of 2 exonerations of criminal wrongdoing in the Bureau's probe of her unauthorized and insecure email setup. The documents quietly released as part of the FBI's case files for the, quote, mid-year exam, its code name for the Clinton email investigation, revive a lingering mystery from Clinton's tenure as the nation's chief diplomat. Why did Sidney Blumenthal, the former journalist and Bill Clinton White House aide, send her a series of detailed memos and reports about Libya beginning in 2011? The documents offer an answer. They allege that Blumenthal sent the emails as a quid pro quo to free up classified State Department financial intelligence to help Libya recover as much as $66 billion spirited offshore by slain strongman Muammar Gaddafi. Turns out that Blumenthal and associates stood to gain a broker's cut of perhaps hundreds of millions of dollars. You see, dear listener, I don't tell you lies. I prove what I know. I prove what I know. We'll skip down in the piece. The heavily redacted files are part of a 428-page FBI document dump posted on FBI.gov in June, which can be downloaded here. The documents are labeled by the FBI as having been received on June 6, 2016, a month before the first of Comey's 2 exonerations of Clinton, and roughly 7 weeks before the FBI opened its counterintelligence probe of the Trump campaign, relying on the Steele dossier. They are watermarked as having been declassified in December of 2016 after the presidential election. You know what, dear listener? I messed up just a minute ago. I said 2017. I meant 2016. Sorry about that. Let me correct myself before I get fact-shamed by you sharp, ever so quickly witted dear listeners. Let me correct myself. I meant 2016. My bad. Tom Fitton, president of Judicial Watch, confirmed that his organization funded the freelance investigative project, including research on the encrypted, quote, dark web, after the work was already underway. Quote, and then we found a key Libya-linked document suggesting Mrs. Clinton's server was hacked by the Russians. Oh, do you see where this is going? You see where this is going? This ain't about Libya at all. Well, it really is about Libya, but this is about Spygate, dear listener. This is all involved. Let me go on. Tom Fitton said his group passed the probe's information to the FBI team led by Peter Strzok. Oh, imagine that. Imagine that. The agent in charge of the Clinton email inquiry. The FBI files do not indicate how or if the allegations in the documents were pursued. The only hint is a few handwritten notes of an FBI interview with someone apparently involved in the private probe with the names redacted. Fitton said he does not know why the alleged Libyan asset repatriation plan had not been publicized earlier. He would not identify the private investigator or elaborate further on the investigation. The FBI and the Justice and State Departments declined to comment for this article. Imagine that. After an earlier version of this article was published, Blumenthal contacted Real Clear Investigations, objecting that its contents were false and defamatory. Oh my God! He said that contrary to the article's earlier assertion, I did not respond to the reporter's integrity. I received no inquiry from reporters saying Carter. Oh my God! Blumenthal continued, in no time did I seek, obtain classified information from the State Department. It is clearly completely false that I ever sought to recover any of Gaddafi's assets. It is completely false that I stood to gain a broker's cut as a result of falsely stated in the article. Oh my God! There is all you need to know. There is all you need to know. When they deny it, that means it's true. When they say A, it means Z. When they accuse you of something, it's exactly what they are doing, dear listener, right? Watch the denials. Don't watch the accusations. Watch the denials. They're, first of all, more entertaining. And second of all, when the denials come from the left, exactly the opposite of what they say is true. That's what the truth is. Now, this kind of dovetails with this kind of weird story that came out this week about how there was a U.S. CIA asset, a spy, deeply embedded in Russia, spying on the Russians, right? And apparently, you know, according to a CNN piece that dropped earlier this week, Donald Trump said so many things about this agent that he had to be exfiltrated in an emergency operation from Russia, okay? Well, it turns out that entire story was complete horseshit. All of it, right? Obama was already considering removing the CIA asset, right? Obama was the one who doxed the CIA asset, not Donald Trump, even though CNN conveniently tried to hang this around Donald Trump's neck. Donald Trump was the one, after Obama screwed this agent, who finally got his ass out of danger, out of Russia, and brought him back to his family, right? Now, there was some resistance from the agent, right? He didn't necessarily want to go because you get pulled out of an operation like this, dear listener, your career in the CIA is over. Your career as a spy is over. You can't be used again as an asset when something like this happens. So he didn't really want to do it. But Donald Trump approached him. Well, somebody from the Trump administration was like, man, you know, shit. Obama said all this stuff about you. You know, he kind of doxed you already. You want us to get you out of there? And the agent said, yes, I'm ready to go back to my family now. And that is the truth right there, dear listener. Now, it does beg the question. It really begs the question to me. Why was it that Obama, at the end of his administration, in about, I'm going to call it about November of 2016, after Donald Trump had been elected, maybe December of 2016, Trump wasn't president yet. Why did Obama screw this up so bad and dox this agent and compromise this agent's identity? Dear listener, does this have something to do with Spygate? Does this have something to do with Barack Hussein Obama himself trying to prove a link between Donald Trump and Russia, trying to leave a shit show of a situation with an agent in Russia that Donald Trump has to clean up? Because if Donald Trump does clean it up, well then, oh my God, he's clearly colluding with Russia. Oh my God. Is that what's going on here? How deep does this corruption go, dear listener? How deep does this go? It goes really deep, and you and I both know it. But what's happening now is that we're getting a clearer picture of what Spygate really is. This information is getting out there. People are beginning to understand it, right? It wasn't just about Russia, Russia, Russia. No, it's also about Libya, Libya, Libya as well, right? It's also about, I don't know, North Korea, North Korea, North Korea. It's also about Venezuela, Venezuela, Venezuela. It's also about Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia, Saudi Arabia. And you believe that. Again, I'm not trying to lay out a case here, dear listener. I'm trying to give you things to think about. I'm not going to paint a full painting here for you. You're going to have to, I want to draw a frame here. You fill in the details. You go do your own research and you find out what you think about it and let me know. Let me know what you think. Now, you know, it was one of these weeks like this, dear listener, where I was just like, man, I was triggered last night. You know, I was, I don't know. I got off work late as always. Right. And I was just like, man, you know, this sucks. There's nothing going on. And then you start looking back at your notes from the previous week. And, oh, and also I didn't have internet for about 24 hours. That really pissed me off really bad. And you're just like sitting here thinking, man, yeah, what am I even doing? Why am I even talking about this? Everything is just black pills everywhere. And then you start thinking about the Trump rally and you're like, oh yeah, that happened. That was good. Oh yeah, damn. John Bolton got fired. Okay, that's good, right? You know, the dim debate was a shit show. That's really good, right? So overall, it was a really white-pilling week. I was just in a black-pilled space is the fact of the matter, right? And one of the big white pills this week was, I've got a Daily Caller piece here, dropped on the 12th, yesterday, the day after 9/11. The title, the headline is, DOJ rejects Andrew McCabe's appeal to avoid charges. I'm going to take it from the lead. It goes thus. This is written by Chuck Ross, by the way. The Justice Department has denied Andrew McCabe's appeal to avoid charges for lying to investigators about approving leaks to the media, according to two sources familiar with the matter. Deputy Attorney General Jeffrey Rosen informed the former FBI deputy director by email that he will reject McCabe's appeal of charges recommended by Jesse Liu, the former U.S. attorney in Washington, D.C. A source familiar with the probe told the DCNF that line prosecutors in Liu recommended charges against McCabe over false statements he allegedly made to the FBI's Office of Professional Responsibility and Justice Department Inspector General's office. The department rejected your appeal of the United States Attorney's Office. Anyway, that's the email. It's kind of, yeah, let's read it. The department rejected your appeal of the United States Attorney's Office's decision in this matter. Any further inquiries should be directed to the United States Attorney's Office, the Justice Department wrote. Denied, Andrew McCabe. Denied. A source close to McCabe confirmed the accuracy of the Fox News report to the DCNF. The decision paves the way for an indictment against McCabe. The Justice Department declined comment regarding any potential indictments. Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. They really can't comment on that. But Sidney Powell, the God-tier lawyer for Michael Flynn, right? I love Sidney Powell. We talked about her numerous times in these hallowed halls, dear listener. Go back and listen to episode number 13, I believe it was, where I talk about what's going on with Mike Flynn. And there have been some developments that we're fixing to get to right here, okay? She calls into Lou Dobbs' show last night, and they have a fantastic conversation, as they always do. And she pretty much said, I expect Andrew McCabe to be indicted immediately. You know, I expect this any moment now. Well, here we are through Friday, and there's no indictment. It may have happened in the last hour or so since I hit the red button, dear listener. It might have. I don't know. You know, and I really, you know, as a one-man band, I can't go and check the news as we're doing the show like I can with my partner, Luke. You know, Luke can take the reins for a minute and I can kind of sit here and check up on things, or vice versa. But as a one-man band, I can't do it. So it may have dropped here at the end of a Friday. You know, crazy political things tend to happen on Fridays, and that is a fact, dear listener. So I don't know. Maybe it has happened, but last I checked, it hadn't, right? And so, you know, I talked to dearest listener last night for a little bit, and I was like, you know, what do you think's going to happen? And she's like, nothing. Nothing's going to happen. He's going to get away with probation or something like that. Talked to mine and Luke's boy in San Francisco as well. I was texting with him and Shady Nate. We've got a God-tier text thread going. It's been going on since 2015, all about politics, right? And he doesn't really think anything is going to happen. Now, remember the title of last week's show, dear listener, was Bargate. We have an objective array of issues here that are not being handled, okay? So I'm not trying to step in here and say, oh, TikTok. I've given up on that. I've given up, right? I'll let Sean Hannity do that work, okay? What I'm saying is look at what happened with Felicity Huffman today. There is a two-tier justice system firmly entrenched. There's nothing we can do to usurp it other than revolt. You know what I mean? Elections aren't working, right? Nothing's working. Anybody we elect to the government becomes part of that machine, right? And, I'm not trying to blackpill too much right now, but I don't think much is going to happen to McCabe. Will he be indicted? Yeah. Will he be found not guilty? Probably. Well, maybe found guilty and given some kind of a slap on the wrist, right? But what is happening, dear listener? Just as I've praised you for how smart and intelligent and on it you are, there are millions of us that are also smart and intelligent and are knowing the facts right now. This information is coming out, right? Whether or not we get retribution, whether or not we get justice for Andrew McCabe trying to railroad Donald J. Trump, which we probably won't. Remember, like Lou Dobbs also quoted this, first we F Flynn, then we F Trump. That's what McCabe literally said on a phone call. First we F Flynn. You know the word I'm using. Then we F Trump. He said that. He said those words. Then he leaked private documentation to the Washington Post and ran an operation against Michael Flynn and covered up information from Judicial Watch about what was really going on with Hillary Clinton in Libya, along with James Comey. It wasn't just him. The two of them acted in concert as a pair, as a duo. It wasn't just one or the other. It was both of them, right? The pessimism is understandable. Dearest listener says, nothing's going to happen. Also, another writer on this trail, mine and Luke's wrestling partner out in San Francisco, right? He's like, yeah, nothing's going to happen. Barr's going to huff and puff and no houses will be blown down is what he texted me and Shady Nate today, right? This is what I expect as well. But dear listener, for every black pill, there is a white pill. And the white pill is this. We're beginning to understand just how corrupt this is. We're not even talking about Uranium One yet. We all know about how corrupt that is too. We're not even talking about the Clinton Foundation. We're not even really talking about Epstein right now. We're starting to get a picture of how this is all tied together and how deep the rock goes. And once you know something and you see the facts, which are irrefutable, there is reality, there is the truth. That's it, right? You cannot spin a lie against reality, right? Once we understand all of this, that truth will never be forgotten, and that is indeed a white pill. Speaking of white pills, let's talk about Mike Flynn just a little bit. I've got a Zero Hedge piece here, dropped a couple days ago. Mike Flynn exonerated by bombshell DOJ memo exposed during hearing. Take it from the lead. It goes thus. A bombshell revelation was barely noticed at National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's hearing on Tuesday when his counsel revealed in court the existence of a Justice Department memo from January 30th of 2017 exonerating Flynn of any collusion with Russia. The memo, which has still not been made available to Flynn's attorney, Sidney Powell, is part of a litany of Brady material she is demanding from prosecutors. The memo is currently under protective order, and Powell is working with prosecutors to get it disclosed, Sarah A. Carter has learned. U.S. District Court Judge Emmett G. Sullivan, who we've also talked about in these hallowed halls, provided over the hearing Tuesday and set a tentative December 18th sentencing date. He told the prosecution and defense that the sentencing date could be moved depending on how the outcome of requests for Brady material requested by Powell and how the case will unfold in the upcoming months. Sullivan also noted during the hearing that the Brady order takes precedence over the plea agreement. You understand that, dear listener? Mike Flynn pleaded guilty because the Justice Department came after him and said that they were even going to go after his son and his business partner unless he pled guilty. So he signed a plea agreement. Okay? Now, let me just, rather than read the piece anymore, let me just summarize some things that went on. Okay? So Emmett Sullivan, the judge, asked Sidney Powell, okay, so, all right, are you going to reverse your guilty plea? You going to reverse the plea agreement? Sidney Powell says to him, no, we're not. We're going to get this effing case thrown out of court. We're going to get Michael Flynn exonerated, and we're going to prove government corruption in the process if you just give me this damn information that I've been asking for months. I need this information now. This is exculpatory information, which Andrew Weissman in the special counsel's office hid from Sidney Powell and remains hiding from Sidney Powell, right? This is going to get Flynn off. That's what's going on here. That's what's going on here. And she's saying that she is going to prove government corruption in the process. I believe her. I believe her 100%. Sidney Powell gets the business done, dear listener. The DOJ, not so much. Tom Fitton does the business the DOJ won't do, that William Barr won't do. Now, listen, I'm not going to go all black pill about William Barr, right? As dearest listener said last night, we have no choice but to trust William Barr, and that is true. I do trust William Barr's appointment of John Bull Durham looking into all of this stuff, and now we're finding out that IG Horowitz has also uncovered all of this stuff that we didn't know about. There may be something going on deeper here. Let me throw a disqualifier out here, dear listener. There may be something going on deeper, right? Remember last week we talked about how Comey was exonerated for leaking his memos, running at Donald Trump, taking memos after every conversation he had with him, then leaking them to his buddy, his attorney. Oh my God, I've got attorney-client privilege, with the intent of leaking it to the New York Times. Under order by James Comey to leak it to the New York Times. William Barr comes out and says, yeah, we're not going to prosecute that, okay? We talked about this last week. Go back and listen to it, right? Joe DeGeneva and Victoria Tensing come out and say, yeah, you know what? It's not a really strong case. He only violated FBI rules here. They're not really prosecuting it because there's something bigger coming. I'm open to that suggestion. I am. There may be a deeper play going on here, dear listener. I'm entirely open to that, right? But as we sit here on Friday the 13th, damn, I hadn't even thought about it was Friday the 13th. Wow, I hadn't even thought about that. On Friday the 13th, right now, the tally is not going in the favor of justice at this moment, okay? Are things going on? Maybe. We'll see what happens. But I'll tell you one thing for damn sure that's going to happen. Sidney Powell is going to get Mike Flynn acquitted. And not only that, she's going to get the case thrown out of court, and she is going to absolutely hang this around the heads of Robert Mueller and Andrew Weissman. You take that check to the bank and cash it, dear listener. I promise you that's going to happen. That is going to be some epic stuff. The laws will be had. Believe this. Laws will be had. And we will get even more of a picture after we get this Brady information, which Sidney Powell is entirely entitled in order to defend her client, yet the government still continues to hide this information. Why? Okay, so why do they hide it? Why do they hide it? Because they know that they lied in order to prosecute Michael Flynn. They know that they were trying to take a run at Trump. They know it. They know this documentation proves it. You know something else? There were parts of the text messages between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page that have never seen the light of day. I wonder why that is. Sidney Powell is seeking those documents as well. She knows what's in them. We know what's in them. We know what's there. What we're going to see when we get these documents, the Brady information that was exculpatory information for Michael Flynn, and we get these texts between Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, which is our measuring stick, dear listener. We add these texts into the whole corpus of intelligence, as John Brennan once said. We add this to the corpus of the texts of Peter Strzok and Lisa Page. Well, now this is our measuring stick. This is what we measure real life events against, is what it was that Peter Strzok and Lisa Page were talking about. There's a big hole in that measuring stick right now. Okay. We got inches, 1 through 6, inches 8 through 10 are missing. And then we got inches 11 and 8 at the end of our foot-long measuring stick. Okay. Once we start getting these inches 6 through 8, 5 through 8 filled in, well, now we can really take proper measurement of what's going on in this case, right? Sidney Powell's going to get that too. You believe that? She's going to get that information. And she's going to tell us when she gets it. All right, let's ride on a little bit. Yet another Zero Hedge piece. This dropped on the 7th. It's not really new news, but I just kind of want to throw it here into this corpus of intelligence about what's going on with Spygate. Oh my God. The headline is, Mueller helped Saudis cover up involvement in 9/11 attacks. You know what? Let me save that. Let me save that piece. Sorry about that. Let me save that. Okay. let me think about this for a minute. Are we going to do, there's been some, this week was 9/11, dear listener. It's always a hard day for all of us to get through, right? We all remember it. Well, not all of us. There are some youngins that listen to this show, but most of us do remember it. We remember what we were wearing, where we were sitting, exactly what our context was. It's a really painful time to get through, right? There have been a lot of things coming out about 9/11, which is really kind of not being covered by anybody. Not by anybody, but I've got some stories about it. So I might just touch this third rail about 9/11, but maybe it's too soon. I'm going to think about it as we go through this show. Okay. All right. I'm going to think about that. Now, in the meantime, we're going to get back to Michael Flynn. I've got a Daily Caller piece here that dropped on 9/11. The headline is Rod Rosenstein authorized Mueller to investigate Flynn's son. Sidney Powell says. Here it goes from the lead. It goes thus. A lawyer for Michael Flynn said Tuesday former Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein authorized Special Counsel Robert Mueller to investigate Flynn's son, Michael Flynn Jr. Sidney Powell, Flynn's lawyer, made the revelation in an interview. It's not really a revelation. We already knew this. In an interview with Fox News' Sean Hannity while discussing developments in Flynn's case. Powell argued that federal court Tuesday, that charges against the former national security advisor should be dismissed due to, quote, egregious misconduct on the part of the government prosecutors. We all know that Mr. Mueller got a letter from Mr. Rosenstein that allowed him to target Michael Flynn Jr., and there was significant pressure to enter a guilty plea while they were hiding all the evidence that showed he had not been an agent of Russia, that there were no Logan violations, Powell told Hannity. Hannity asked Powell about the possibility that Flynn took a plea deal in order to protect his son from being prosecuted. Powell did not confirm Hannity's scenario, but suggested it was possible. When you put together the fact that Mr. Mueller got the letter, you know what? Let me not read it. Let's just play the audio here real quick. Let's just play the audio. I watched this. It was God tier. Let me pull it up here real quick.
Basically, what you're saying is they have abused their power. And, the entire prosecution should be dismissed. That means the special counsel should be dismissed because of your words, egregious government misconduct.
Yes, the prosecution of Mr. Flynn, particularly General Flynn, should be dismissed because of egregious government misconduct and their stunning Brady violations from the beginning of their tenure as special counsel through now. They are still withholding exculpatory evidence from us. The January 30th memo that Sarah just talked about, we don't have that yet. We only have like a 3-line summary of that statement.
You said that you're not seeking to have Flynn's guilty plea thrown out. We saw the misconduct of Comey. He's admitting to it himself. And clearly, when he was told he didn't need an attorney when he did, I think that's straightforward. But you said you're not seeking to have the guilty plea thrown out. But my recollection is Sidney Powell, that in fact the FBI agents that interviewed him, they didn't think he was lying. And you talked about enormous amounts of pressure. I would assume that they were saying either you sign this, and now by this point he's bankrupt and selling his house. I assume they were saying stuff like, oh, let me guess, if you don't, we're going to go after your son.
Hannity, get to the point, for God's sake.
Who's in business with you.
Well, we know that Mr. Mueller got a letter from Mr. Rosenstein that allowed him to target Michael Flynn Jr., and there was significant pressure put on General Flynn to enter a guilty plea while they were hiding all the evidence that showed he had not been an agent of Russia, that there were no Logan Act violations. But we're not going to. The plan, at least right now, anyway, is not to withdraw the guilty plea per se, but to have the entire prosecution dismissed because of the egregious misconduct.
So you withhold the exculpatory information. He's going bankrupt. No offense, but you lawyers can be very expensive sometimes. That's the scenario that really unfolded.
Well, when you put together the fact that Mr. Mueller got the letter authorizing him to target Michael Flynn Jr., and they had seized Michael Flynn Jr.'s computers and electronic devices and those things, it's not too hard to imagine that that might have happened. I don't want to speak now to things that are not a matter of public record, but stay tuned because more and more will become apparent as we proceed through the litigation.
Sydney, I always ask people that when I'm interviewing them, if you can't tell me certain things, am I over the target?
You sure know how to put somebody on the spot, Sean.
I'm a professional. I've been doing this a while.
That was pretty good. You sure know how to put somebody on the spot, Sean. So there it is. I mean, I don't have to read it to you. You probably already saw it. This was listen, Sean, I'm not trying to shout you down about anything, man, but sometimes your questions are a little bit long and sometimes you're a little bit too interruptive. Respectfully, sir, just let her talk. Just let her talk. So, and rather than me talking, let's just let Sidney Powell talk. Let's just let her talk, right? Let's skip forward in this. Now that I've got the clip pulled up, we've got the lovely Janine Pirro here, who's throwing in some commentary. Let's listen to what she has to say.
I wouldn't seek to withdraw the plea. I would move for a dismissal of all the charges. It is the totality of circumstances. The fact that you've got the biggest liars and leakers in the FBI, and I write about this in my book, Radicals, Resistance, and Revenge. The biggest liars and leakers, Comey and McCabe, violating protocol, violating White House rules, saying you don't need an attorney, denial of his constitutional rights. They've had him in their crosshairs since Donald Trump was elected. And to be honest with you, this judge is a good judge as far as I'm concerned. He's got to look at the complexity of this whole thing and allow for the dismissal of these charges. This is absurd.
Yeah, and he has a history in the Ted Stevens case. I know it was too late. The guy already lost his seat. This is the same judge that said, no, out, done. And on the same issue, really, isn't it abuse of power, prosecutorial misconduct? Like you write about, let's see, Andrew Weissman, the same guy in the book, License to Lie.
Exactly, and Judge Sullivan is the judicial hero of License to Lie precisely because of the Stevens case and the report he ordered pursuant to an investigation of the department itself that found pervasive, intentional, and systematic misconduct by the prosecutors. This is Stevens on steroids.
Without a doubt. And Jim Comey, based upon what he did, saying he thinks he would have gotten away with it. I mean, why doesn't he even have a law license? Why isn't this guy being charged with the same kinds of things that he is charging other people with, lying and leaking?
Why isn't lying to the President of the United States a violation of 18 United States Code 1001?
Damn right, Sidney Powell. That law specifically means lying to a federal officer, right? Donald Trump is James Comey's superior, right? He could be argued that even Michael Flynn is superior to Andrew McCabe when Andrew McCabe said, whoa, what WTF? You're bringing agents over here to interview me. Do I need to get a lawyer? And Andrew McCabe goes, nah, bro. We're just coming to find out some facts. We just want to try to fill in some data points. You don't need no lawyer. And then they end up absolutely grilling him and finding contradictory statements and bringing up on FARA charges and lying to federal agents. And by lying to this law is what Sidney Powell is talking about, lying to federal officers. Why is James Comey exonerated for lying to Donald Trump about Michael Flynn, about Donald Trump is not the target of any investigation when he obviously was, and about the fact that he leaked to his buddy and thereby to the New York Times? And dear listener, we're going to leave Spygate right there. We're just going to leave it. We're going to move on. Now, it raises the question, do we want to talk about 9/11? Where are we at in show length right now? Let me take a look at this. We're about an hour and 12 minutes. Okay. All right, let's do it. I've got a piece here that I almost read just a minute ago. It's from the New York Post. I had the Zero Hedge piece of it, but I want to go to the original source, which is the New York Post. This dropped on the 7th of September. The headline is, Robert Mueller helped Saudi Arabia cover up its role in the 9/11 attacks, according to a lawsuit. Take it from the lead. It goes thus. Robert Mueller was, quote, the master when it came to covering up 9/11, according to a lawsuit. After a lengthy investigation, special counsel Robert Mueller charged Russia made, quote, multiple systematic efforts to interfere in our election, end quote, and said the, quote, incursion deserves the attention of every American. Oh my God, end quote. But former FBI investigators say their old boss didn't feel the same concern when they uncovered multiple systematic efforts by the Saudi government to assist the hijackers in the lead up to the 9/11 attacks, a far more consequential, to say nothing of deadly, foreign influence operation in America. As the head of the FBI at the time, they say Mueller was not nearly as interested in investigating that espionage conspiracy, which also involved foreign intelligence officers. Far from it. The record shows he covered up evidence pointing back to the Saudi embassy in Riyadh and may have even misled Congress about what he knew. 9/11 victims agree. Quote, he was the master when it came to covering up the kingdom's role in 9/11, said survivor Sharon Promoli, who was pulled from the rubble of the World Trade Center 18 years ago. Quote, in October of 2001, Mueller shut down the government's investigation after only 3 weeks and then took part in the Bush administration's campaign to block, obfuscate, and generally stop anything about Saudi Arabia from being released, end quote, added Promoli, now a plaintiff, in the 9/11 lawsuit against Saudi Arabia. In fact, Mueller threw up roadblocks in the way of his own investigators working on the 9/11 case, which, while making it easier for Saudi suspects to escape questioning, multiple case agents told me. Then he deep-sixed what evidence his agents did manage to uncover according to the 9/11 lawsuit against the Saudis. And then he goes through a list of the evidence. It's a little bit long. We're not going to go through it. But Robert Mueller covered up evidence of Saudi malfeasance in 9/11, right? And what ended up happening is that all these 9/11 victims got together and they are now suing Saudi Arabia. That lawsuit was shut down and canceled. It went up to a higher court and the court was like, yeah, you know what? We're going to let this lawsuit happen because why was it trying to be covered up? Well, I guarantee you this is why, because Robert Rosenstein was acting attorney general of the FBI at that point in time, right? Essentially, Jeff Sessions was pushed off to the sidelines. He was trying to cover for his buddy Robert Mueller because Robert Mueller covered up the Saudi Arabia investigation. Rosenstein knew every last bit of that cover up, and so he's trying to shut down this lawsuit. Why? Because this lawsuit will go through discovery. Evidence will be learned about Saudi malfeasance involving 9/11. Now, again, dear listener, I'm not trying to paint you a picture. I am trying to draw a frame within which you can paint your own picture. Okay? Well, I got another piece here, dear listener. The title of it was on the unsreview.com. It was dropped on 9/11, it was dropped the day after 9/11, yesterday. The headline is 9/11 was an Israeli job. It's on the UNS Review. Go check it out. It's a 3,800-word barn burner, dear listener. We're just going to take it from the lead and read a couple of paragraphs here. Thanks to courageous investigators, many anomalies in the official explanation of the events of 9/11 were posted on the internet in the following months, providing evidence that this was a false flag operation and that Osama bin Laden was innocent, and as he repeatedly declared in the Afghan and Pakistani press on Al Jazeera. The proofs of this appalling fraud have been accumulating ever since and are now accessible to anyone willing to spend a few hours of research on the web. For example, members of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth have demonstrated that it was impossible for plane crashes and jet fuel fires to trigger the collapse of the Twin Towers. Even Donald Trump understood this back in 2001. In fact, speaking of collapse is perhaps misleading. The towers literally exploded, pulverized concrete and projecting pieces of steel beams weighing several hundred tons, hundreds of meters laterally at high speeds. The pyroclastic dust that immediately flooded through the streets, not unlike dust from a volcano, indicates that a high-temperature mixture of hot gases and relatively dense solid particles, an impossible phenomenon in a simple collapse. It is also impossible that World Trade Center 7, another skyscraper at 47 stories, which had not been hit by any plane, collapsed into its own footprint at a near free-fall speed, unless by controlled demolition. Oh, we just had to pull it. We just had to pull it. I'll get into that some other time. Testimonies of firefighters recorded shortly after the events describe sequences of explosions just before the, quote, collapse, well below the plane impact. The presence of molten metal in the wreckage up to 3 weeks after the attack is inexplicable, except by the presence of incompletely burned explosives. Firefighter Philip Rivolo testified before Etienne Sarent's camera for his film Collateral Damages in 2011. You'd get down below and you'd see molten steel everywhere, running down the channelways like you were in a foundry, like lava. Aviation professionals have also reported impossibilities in the behavior of the planes. The charted speeds of the two aircraft hitting the Twin Towers, 443 miles per hour and 542 miles per hour, exclude these aircraft being Boeing 767s because these speeds are virtually impossible near ground level. In the unlikely event such speeds could be attained without the aircraft falling apart, flying them accurately into the towers was mission impossible, especially by the amateur pilots blamed for the hijacking. Recall that neither of the black boxes of the jetliners was ever found. An incomprehensible situation. All right, now, so I've just kind of laid some of that out, okay? I'm going to skip down just a little bit. They talk about the dancing Israelis. I don't necessarily want to read that. I'm going to read this section right here. The title, like this piece is 3,800 words and it's broken up into sections. Section number 3 right here is inside job or Mossad job. Among the growing number of Americans who disbelieve the official version of the 9/11 attacks, two basic theories are in competition. I call them the inside job and the Mossad job. The first one is the dominant thesis within the so-called 9/11 truth movement and blames the American government or a faction within the American deep state. The second one claims that the masterminds were members of a powerful Israeli network deeply infiltrated in all spheres of power within the United States, including media, government, military, and secret services. This Mossad job thesis has been gaining ground since Alan Sabrowski, a professor at the U.S. Army College of War and the U.S. Military Academy, published in July 2012 an article entitled, quote, Demystifying 9/11, Israel and the Tactics of a Mistake, end quote, that's the title of the piece, where he voiced his conviction that September 11th was a classic Mossad orchestrated operation. So you can see what we've got here, dear listener. We've got a seemingly interestingly connected Mossad operation in the form of Jeffrey Epstein, and now also 9/11. We can notice from the outset that incriminating Israelis or Arabs are both outside job theories. In fact, they are mirror images of each other. I'm not going to read the parenthetical. Before even looking at the evidence, quote, outside job sounds more credible than inside job. There's something monstrous in the idea that a government can deceive and terrorize its own citizens by killing thousands of them just for starting a series of wars that are not even in the nation's interest. By comparison, a foreign power attacking the U.S. under the false flag of a third power almost seems like fair play. Indeed, suspicion of Israel's role should be natural to anyone aware of the reputation of the Mossad as, quote, wild card, ruthless and cunning, has the capability to target U.S. forces and make it look like Palestinian or an Arabic, in the words of the report of the U.S. Army School for Advanced Military Studies, quoted by the Washington Times on September 10th of 2001. September 10th of 2001, the day before 9/11. This is an important point because it raises the other question of how and why the 9/11 truth movement has been led to endorse massively the outrageous inside job thesis without even considering the more likely thesis of an attack by a foreign power acting under an Islamic false flag. And what foreign power but Israel would do that? Now, I'm just going to leave it right there, dear listener. I'm not one of these, well, yeah, I am kind of a 9/11 truther. I saw with my own eyes on 9/11 that day numerous things that did not make sense. I was watching Peter Jennings that day on ABC, okay? And it was about 2 o'clock Texas time in the afternoon. I went into work. My client was there, and she was like, we're not working today. Go home, right? And so I did, and just kept the news on all day. And I was watching Peter Jennings because he was America's anchor man at that point in time, right? And I trusted him more than anybody else. And Peter Jennings says, live on the air, we've just received reports that World Trade Center has also collapsed. We're going to go to the scene right now. And they cut to a live shot, and World Trade Center 7 is still standing. It's still standing. Dear listener, it is the weirdest shit I've ever seen. No, not the weirdest, but it was pretty weird. It was a very red-pilling moment because I was like, wait a second, Peter Jennings just said it collapsed, and then we cut to the scene, and World Trade Center 7 is still standing? I don't get it. right? I saw a lot of things that day that just didn't make sense. And I'm still trying to reconcile this in my mind. Do I believe that Israel is behind it? No, I do not. But Laurent Guillenot for the UN's Review certainly does, right? I'm not reporting facts here, dear listener. I'm trying to give you things to think about, to consider on your own. There most certainly is something that went on with 9/11 that we cannot fathom, that we don't understand, right? All of this molten steel, I heard about that. That doesn't make sense to me. The passports of the hijackers being found on the ground while everything else is just absolute dust, yet conveniently they find these passports. That never made sense to me, right? Now, I'm not a crusader about trying to find out about the truth about 9/11, right? But I do think about it. I think about it every 9/11. I think about the senseless deaths of 3,000 of our fellow citizens. And I wonder why it happened, right? I think about the wars that we got into after the fact that were not any vengeance for 9/11. Iraq did not attack the Twin Towers. Iraq did not attack the United States. Yet that was our first theater of war that we went into, was to overthrow Saddam Hussein. And by the way, guess who orchestrated that? Well, it was George Bush, yes, but guess who really was the mastermind behind it? Oh, yeah, that would be John Bolton, who has now resigned from rage quits the Trump administration this week because he's furious about Trump trying to meet with the Taliban to make a peace deal at Camp David. Rage quits. He was the mastermind behind the war in Iraq. Why did we ever go to a war in Iraq? What sense did that ever make? It doesn't make sense at all. And it's been reported this week that we've spent $7 trillion on wars in the Middle East. For what? For what? Have we avenged our loss on 9/11, dear listener? Have we avenged it? Do we feel better now? Are we richer for it? Did this benefit the United States in any way? Did this benefit you, dear listener, in any way? Did this benefit me? I can tell you unequivocally, no, it didn't. Again, I ain't trying to come out and say that the Israelis did 9/11. I'm not even trying to come out and say that the Saudis did 9/11. And I'm certainly not coming out and saying that the United States government did 9/11. What I'm saying is that there is something here that we don't understand. And I'm just reporting to you what other people think about it so that you can think about it. And what is really interesting here is this. What are they called? The architects and engineers for 9/11 Truth came out with a study saying there's no way the official narrative is true. We've done forensics, computer modeling, we've built physical models, and we found out that there's no way that WTC-7 can collapse into its own footprint, and there's no way that jet fuel could cause molten steel. There's no way. People have been saying this since September 12th of 2001, dear listener, but now there is an official, certified study supported by testimony of firefighters who were there on the scene, and there is also a lawsuit against the Saudi government for perpetrating the attack, okay? We do know about Bandar Bush, right? Bandar, George Bush Jr.'s best friend, right? Bandar Bush spent his whole life with the Bushes, raised with them, right? We do know that his family was allowed passage out of the United States on September 12th of 2001. We know that for a fact. We know that all of bin Laden's family were allowed safe passage out of the United States, while, dear listener, there was no way we could board a plane in the United States, yet they were ensconced out of the United States on private jets. There's something here we don't understand, right? And just like Spygate, dear listener, just like Jeffrey Epstein, will anything happen? No, probably not. Will we find out how deep the corruption goes? Yes, we will. And we will never forget. All right, dear listener, I'm going to hit the black button on that note right there. That just about does it for Bots, Thoughts, and Drops issue number 19. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed listening as much as I did putting it down. We're going to sit here and drink a little bit, dear listener. I've got some friends to talk to tonight. We got to talk to Luke tonight. We got to show prep a little bit for tomorrow. We're recording HSP tomorrow morning, on time and under budget. You believe that? And I will try to get this out to you tonight. Thank you so much for listening. I hope I did not offend anyone by any of my comments whatsoever, and I was just kidding with you about not liking the politics earlier, dear listener. I was just trying to have some fun with you. I hope you understand. Anyways, dear listener, you take care of yourself. You give yourself a foot rub. You go out and look at the stars. You go out and watch that sunset tonight. I will be back at you before you know it.